guys? It's Blackie. Okay, today this is going to be a quick tip or trick on how to develop some knife skill. Now, this is one of those no-brainers, but it's really one of the basis of how to do a lot of knife skills. Now, when I was young, how I learned to use a knife was my grandmother. You know, I was a kid that had a problem I couldn't walk until I was 4. So I got stuck in the kitchen a lot while she was preparing meals, and so I'd be handed a small paring knife and she'd set an onion in front of me and tell me to cut it up. It didn't matter what the pieces looked like in the end because they were going in a pot for flavoring. But from that I learned to do things. She'd say, okay, this is a slice, this is a such and such, this is a such and such, cut it like this, cut it like that. And so to me, it's become an invaluable tool of when I've got a knife and I'm wanting to practice with it, learn with it. I take it in the kitchen. I took the WCSK in there, I took the NK in there, I took the Blackbird in there, the prototype in there, and I did a lot of work in the kitchen with it because that's how I learned how the knife ran, how it worked best. So I got my Lutz Skinner. This is a knife designed by my friend Dan Lutz, and I'll give you a real good close-up look at it right there. Now, most people, when they look at this knife, it don't look like much of a knife. But actually, it's very well designed. You just got to figure out what these features are for. And that's what we're going to do. I'm going to be utilizing this to process some stuff for dinner tonight. Now, what I've got here, a couple of zucchini and a couple of potatoes. And I'm going to carve it up using this. Now let's start simply with a potato. What am I going to do with that? This first one, I'm going to peel. Bring it up here and hook it in my hand and just start draw cutting. This knife is designed for processing game, for skinning, for being a finesse knife. This is not a woodcraft knife. And so learning how to use that edge effectively like that to make paper thin shavings and get up here and just use the tip of it to use. That's what I need to learn. Well, that's muscle memory. That's teaching my arm and my hand how much pressure. In a minute I'll show you how it's used in skinning. But for right now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it and I'm going to carefully slice and skin these potatoes, at least this potato, utilizing that tip, utilizing this deep curve right here. I'm going to draw cut just like that, and it's razor sharp, so it has no trouble doing this. And what I'm learning to do is I'm learning how to work the knife, because when I go to clean game, it should not be a learning process. I should have the muscle memory and know how that knife's going to react in a given position. How do I like to hold it? Do I push or pull? This knife is designed to be a push knife, and you're going to get to see this in a minute when you're taking off a hide. But even like this, getting up here and using just the tip of it to precisely peel that potato. You know, nothing to it. When Dan created this knife, and I got looking at it, that's the first thing I thought about it was, how well will it peel potatoes? Because it's a skinning knife. That means thin, precision work. It means cutting up meat of a game animal. Well, if it does that, it better work in the kitchen, shouldn't it? Because the kitchen is my opportunity to practice with it before I've got an expensive thing on the ground. Because in my experience, when I was growing up, I was a meat hunter. So when I killed a coon, a squirrel, a rabbit, or whatever, the hide was a secondary thought. I just tore it off, got it out of the way, and got to the meat, because that's what I'm after, is the meat. But Dan was a professional trapper, and he is showing me how you can make money from your hunting by being able to turn that pelt into a useful product. So I'm wanting to learn, and we're going to be doing that. But before I got a deer laying there and I'm trying to do a head cape or whatever, I want to know this knife a little bit. And this to me is just the best, easiest, cheapest way to get some experience with it. and then just simply slice with it. Now, let me zoom the camera in and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Okay, when I talk about a push cut, I mean this. We're going to divide this in half right quick. Okay. Now, it's got a little tip right here, and what you do is you put that down. That's going to be your guide, and you're going to push it like that. So whenever I push it, this would be how I would take a hide off of a animal like a zipper. I just push it in and push. That's what this thumb knob is right here. Is for my thumb to have a stop. See? You see how that tip and I all work together, allowing me to guide it straight up and through as a push knife. This is effortless, and it'd be effortless for processing thin meat. Now the other day I took and sliced bacon with this. This was a great knife for that. I had solid slab bacon that had not been sliced yet from a friend of mine that cures stuff. And so I came in and got some and went into the kitchen and took this knife and just started processing it. Well, as you can imagine, it didn't take long before Mrs. Blackie was eyeballing that knife for a kitchen knife. So I have to keep an eye on my good knives. They'll end up in the kitchen strainer if I'm not careful. But see how that tip rides on it? This tip, see, would ride on the meat underneath the skin, and that long curve right there would guide the hide up, slicing the hide off. So putting it down on the plate and just pushing, I'm making very thin slices, just like it's nothing to it. I mean, potato chip thin slices. So easy and so quick. This teaches me how to hold the knife, what angle to be at to make the cut. Now I want to put my thumb up here and make sure the blade stays in contact with the meat, in this case with the plate of the cutting board, and just push. See how it wants to ride up? That's because if that was hide, I was pushing back into it. That's exactly what would happen. It would ride up onto it. Alright, enough of a potato. Now let's do something else. Take a zucchini. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take that tip like a finger, slice. Same way I do a tenderloin to get down there and get the meat out, get the sirloin out. Backstrap. That's what I meant to say, backstrap, sorry. Take that end off of there, hook it with my thumb, pull, just like that. Now, putting that up there, setting it on the blade on the tip, put my thumb up here on the back as a push, I push. Voila, paper thin strip. I can guide it. I can twist the knife left, right, make it thinner or thicker as I'm slicing. It makes for a very easy slicer. Well, of course, that's what it's for. It's for slicing up meat. It's for slicing up fish, filleting a fish, whatever. I can still do the traditional taking it like this and push and just make push cuts with it. That thin edge just slices right in like there's nothing there. See? And that curve right there, I can use that curve to my advantage to go around curves. Nothing to it. Take that other half. Push, pull. Put the tip down, put my thumb on the back, push. like that. Instant slicer. Might end up becoming, I might have to get one of these strictly for the kitchen, because they do a good job like this. I can take that tip, I'll do it on a whole one, show you. That long, thin tip right there. I can take that tip and go in and do a tight 360, see. It allows me to go around tendons and ligaments inside the bone. By sticking it in and rolling my wrist, it'll just slice around with just that little bitty tip with no effort. Where conventional knife, you do it like this and push down. With this knife, it can be done as a draw knife. When I'd be skinning, I'd take my finger and put up here at the top, and I'd do this. I would use my fingertip and I would slice just like this. You always know where your finger's at, right? So all I gotta do is just stick and pull and produce the slices just like that. No problem. So to me, a knife needs to be multitasking. And there's a lot of knives you see out there on the market that are labeled as survival knives or whatever. And when we were developing the WCSK with William Collins, that was one of my first questions. Was, what was the conditions you thought that such a knife needed to encompass? And I told him straight up, I said, can you make a sandwich out of it? Can I take it and produce some sort of, usable kitchen duty with it? Because so many of these quote survival knives, you can't do nothing with them. Yeah, you can drive them in a stump, hook a truck to it, and pull the world around. Yeah, but try slicing a tomato with it. It's a cumbersome, awkward tool. On the other hand, when you've got a knife that's designed like this to be a slicer, a dicer, for meat, for hide, etc., I want it to also perform on this end. Not just be the knife that I pull out for skinning the deer. This would be excellent. With that big hump right there to put my thumb on it. To push through the hide. To push through the long meat. To take my finger and choke up on it. Again, that nub right there locks my finger in place. And put the tip of my finger all the way that in for these kind of slice cuts where you're taking the hide off. When I'm cutting that white skin, that connective tissue, just being able to take your finger and do like that, that would be just fantastic. And like I said, being able to do this, do push cuts. Turning the blade edge up and just push through the meat. Once you get the meat done and you're home and you got to process that meat into something usable that you're going to use, like slicing it up. Ta-da! Perfect knife for it. So that's what I'm doing with tonight's opportunity. I could have just easily used my Master Woodsman, but this knife is something I'm playing with right now. I'm learning. I told you in an earlier video that I was looking forward to this knife. I wanted to see this because I know how Dan's mind works and I know what his experience is. And so I wanted to see the knife and run the knife. Do like you're seeing right now. Get it out and try it out. Find out what it does and how it does it. And it was my turn to cook.